Hello, you're watching Outsiders with Rita Russo Panahi, with James Milton Morrow and myself, Rowan Defoe Dean. Thomas Paine was an English-born American 18th century writer and revolutionary and great believer in common sense. Indeed, that was the name of his most famous work, in which he said that, quote, "The greatest tyrannies are always perpetuated in the name of the noblest causes." Way back in 1776, he obviously had Twitter, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and the rest of the big tech woke virtue signaling censorious hypocrites in mind. This week, the House Oversight Committee of the US Congress held its first hearings investigating Joe Biden and his family, where former Twitter executives, 4 of them, faced questions about media coverage of Hunter Biden's laptop. But it went much further than that story, in which you will remember Twitter shut down any talk of Miranda Devine's brilliant expose of Hunter Biden's nefarious activities that should have cost and would have cost Joe Biden the election. As you shall see, 3 very feisty conservative congresswomen exposed just how morally corrupt these sanctimonious and self-righteous totalitarians of Twitter really are. Make no mistake, we are living in a new era of terrifying technocratic tyranny, where we now learn that so-called independent social media companies are in fact working hand in glove with authoritarian left-wing government departments and their woke overlords to suppress information and censor conservatives in ways that would make the East German Stasi shake their heads in disbelief. Big Brother is indeed here, interfering in every one of our lives and yours. Here's our first feisty conservative congresswoman, the Republican from Colorado, Lauren Boebert, quizzing Yoel Roth, the laughably named head of trust and safety at Twitter.
Mr. Roth, while at Twitter, how many meetings did you have with the FBI?
I couldn't say for sure, but I would
More
say
than 10?
That's a reasonable
More than 20?
estimate. I couldn't say for sure.
More than 50?
That seems a bit high.
Many meetings with the FBI. Well, we know how many FBI agents worked at Twitter while you were there?
I don't believe any active FBI agents.
Former FBI agents. How many worked there while you were there?
I'm aware of perhaps 2.
Well, we know of at least 9 because they started the BU group chat, BU for Bureau. Mr. Baker said that there was no collusion with the federal government and Twitter. But Mr. Baker, that's you. You are the collusion between the federal government and the FBI.
And what's wrong with that, might you ask? Why shouldn't Twitter be employing FBI agents?
Did you shadow ban my account? Yes or no?
Again, not to the best of my recollection.
So the answer is, Mr. Roth, yes, you did. I found out last night from Twitter staff that you suppressed my account for this tweet. It's a freaking joke about Hillary Clinton being angry that she couldn't rig her election. It's a joke, but in response, being the sinister overlords that you all are, you placed a 90-day account filter so I could not be found.
The 4 Twitter execs and others claim that they are merely suppressing misinformation. They claim and probably believe that they are acting for the greater good, but they are not.
Election interference? Yeah, I would say that that was taking place because of you 4 sitting here. The Hunter Biden laptop story was suppressed. A sitting member of Congress was suppressed. A sitting president was banned from Twitter. You know, I bet that Putin is sitting in the Kremlin wishing he had as much election interference as you 4 here today. We've heard about threats to democracy. Well, what about shutting down a duly elected member of Congress? This is fundamental to our nation's governance, and you all attacked that very foundation.
And it gets worse, as Thomas Paine warned. In their holier-than-thou attitudes and woke beliefs, big tech is imposing nothing short of tyranny. Marjorie Taylor Greene, or MTG as she is known, is another conservative congresswoman. She's for Georgia. Here she is talking to the same 4 Twitter executives.
You know, at your company or your former company where you worked, Twitter employees, over 98% of them donate to Democrats. So while you coordinated with DHS, the FBI, the CIA, our government, and outside groups to permanently ban, shadow ban conservative Americans and candidates like me and the former president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, you were censoring and wrongfully violating our First Amendment free speech rights. Guess what? None of you hold security clearances. None of you are elected, and none of you represent 750,000 people like I do. Let's explain. 52 United States Law 10101. No person shall intimidate, threaten, coerce, or attempt to stop any other person for the purpose of interfering with their rights to vote or to vote as he may choose. You didn't shadow ban or permanently ban my Democrat opponent. No, you did that to me. And that was wrong, and it was against the law. You see, not only that, was it me that you violated my First Amendment rights, you violated countless conservative Americans. These were parents complaining about their school boards, teaching gender lies in their schools, biological males entering their daughters' bathrooms and sports. These were also people questioning the 2020 election. And guess what? That's Americans' First Amendment right.
Indeed it is. Yet here too in Australia the same suppression and censorship occurs. I should know. Tell me about it. So, who are these censors, the arbiters of a higher morality, these so-called woke Puritans? Let's listen to Marjorie again.
You abuse the power of a large corporation, big tech, to censor Americans. And you want to know something? Guess what? I'm so glad that you're censored down. I'm so glad you've lost your jobs. Thank God Elon Musk bought Twitter. And you know what? Let's talk about something a little bit further. It's amazing to me, Mr. Roth, as the head and trust of safety at Twitter, your ability, or should I say inability, to remove child porn. Now, here's something that disgusts me about you. In your doctoral dissertation entitled Gay Data, you argued that minors should have access to Grindr, an adult male gay hookup app. Minors? Really? You know, Elon Musk took over Twitter and he banned 44,000 accounts that were promoting child porn. You permanently banned my Twitter account, but you allowed child porn all over Twitter.
Yes, there are none so virtuous as the woke. Then we had Republican Congresswoman for South Carolina, Nancy Mace, talking to the same four Twitter executives. First of all, remember that it was on this very show, in this studio, at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, that Dr. Jay Bhattacharya warned us and you and all Australians that there was no need for lockdowns. For running that interview, Rita and I were defamed in the Australian Senate, to your shame, senators, for spreading disinformation. Just bear that in mind as you listen to the next part of the Twitter hearings. It's quite long, but have a listen.
Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is a professor of medicine at Stanford who once tweeted an article he wrote about natural immunity. Thanks to Elon Musk's release of the Twitter files, we learned some of his tweets were tagged with the label of Trends Blacklist. Apparently, the views of a Stanford doctor are disinformation to you people. I, along with many Americans, have long-term effects from COVID. Not only was I a long hauler, but I have effects from the vaccine. It wasn't the first shot, but it was the second shot that I now developed asthma that has never gone away since I had the second shot. I have tremors in my left hand, and I have the occasional heart pain that no doctor can explain, and I've had a battery of tests. I find it extremely alarming Twitter's unfettered censorship spread into medical fields and affected millions of Americans by suppressing expert opinions from doctors and censoring those who disagree with the CDC. I have great regrets about getting the shot because of the health issues that I now have that I don't think are ever going to go away. And I know that I'm not the only American who has those kinds of concerns. So my first question this morning of Ms. Gaddy, may I ask of you, where did you go to medical school?
I did not go to medical school.
I'm sorry?
I did not go to medical school.
That's what I thought. Why do you think you or anyone else at Twitter had the medical expertise to censor a doctor's expert opinion?
Our policies regarding COVID were designed to protect individuals. We were seeing...
You guys censored Harvard-educated doctors, Stanford-educated doctors, doctors that are educated in the best places in the world, and you silenced those voices.
Silencing voices. Remember, Twitter is just one of many, many big tech companies. Our daily lives or information, our government services, so many of our rights and freedoms these days are governed by and depend on access to big tech. When the internet was invented and we all signed up to the World Wide Web, we were promised it was the ultimate democratization of the people. Now, every individual would have a voice. Instead, the tyranny of the technocrats has enslaved us and threatens our rights, sometimes even our lives.
You're not a doctor, right, Ms. Gaddy?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What makes you think you or anyone else at Twitter have the medical expertise to censor actual, accurate CDC data?
I'm not familiar with these particular situations.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not. But this is what Twitter did. They labeled this as inaccurate. It is the government's own data. It's ridiculous that we're even having to have this conversation today. It's not just about the laptop. This is about medical advice that expert doctors were trying to give Americans because social media companies like Twitter were silencing their voices.
Silencing their voices, big tech and social media. Not freedom of speech, but the very opposite, silencing our voices.
I have another question, my last one for you, Ms. Gaddy. Did the U.S. government ever contact you or anyone at Twitter to pressure Twitter to moderate or censor certain tweets? Yes or no?
We have a program.
Did the U.S. government ever contact you or anyone at Twitter to censor or moderate certain tweets? Yes or no?
We receive legal demands to remove content from the platform from the U.S. government and governments all around the world. Those are published on a third-party website, and anyone can review
Thank
them.
God for Matt Taibbi. Thank God for Elon Musk for allowing to show us in the world that Twitter was basically a subsidiary of the FBI.
And there you have it. Thanks to Elon Musk, finally a crack in the tyranny of the technocrats. Will the dam burst open, or will this evil totalitarianism increase its strength to silence us all? It's up to us, you and me. Remember, you and I have the power to be skeptical. You and I have the power to question. You and I have the power not to kowtow to big tech tyranny. Twitter was receiving censorship instructions from governments, quote, all around the world. Was ours one of them? Why was my friend Dr. Jay Bhattacharya demonized and defamed in the Australian Senate when what he told us here on this show in March 2020 turned out to be not disinformation, but the truth? Who told the Australian government to denounce him? And just imagine, had our government listened to Bhattacharya back in 2020, instead of demonizing him, just how many businesses would have been saved? Maybe yours is one of them. The congressional hearings this week showed just how insidious and indeed sinister the tyranny of big tech and authoritarian government has become to our health and to our freedoms. We need similar hearings here urgently, including a royal commission into the abuse of power by governments, big tech and big pharma during COVID. Bring it on.